Here's how I would learn data analytics from scratch if I had to in 2024. And I'm going to teach you how to do it in 3 months. We're going to give you a 3-month plan so that you can go from knowing nothing to knowing data analytics in 3 months. So, hi, my name is Will. If you're wondering who I am and why I'm credible, I'm someone who has worked over 8 years in the digital marketing and analytics space. I've worked all that time in agencies, which I would argue is much more competitive, fast-paced, and you get a lot more experience than working in-house for one company. Just because you're working with so many clients and you get to see a lot of different situations and scenarios. And I'm going to tell you how you can go from zero to hero in 3 months. And I think this is really important because data analytics, data, numbers is now kind of the base, fundamental, key thing to things like artificial intelligence, storing data in the cloud, understanding if your business is successful or not, and measuring your results. And I just want to be honest and let you know that I'm not an expert, I'm not claiming to be, and other people may have different answers based off their job titles and their expertise. As a disclaimer, I currently work as a digital marketing data analyst, which is kind of a subset of a data analyst. And we kind of do these roles where our focus is on collecting, tracking, and reporting on data with various tools. So we have a deep knowledge and understanding of various marketing and web analytics tools that you can install on your website to track things, custom things, or things out of the box, and then report on them and visualize them in ways that leadership can see and digest and understand. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let me break down, give you a little sneak peek about the structure of this video. I'm going to talk about some vital tools that I think are crucial if you want to get started in this field. But also, we're going to cover some things that you may need beyond just the technical skills to actually excel in this role. And then we're going to cover maybe what you can do to present yourself, because perception in marketing is also a big part of the equation. If you have the skills or you think you have them, then you also have to present them. If they don't perceive that you have them, that's another issue if you want to get hired, which I assume is going to be your main goal. Now, it's not just to get these skills in 3 months, but actually be able to use them and maybe join the workforce or contribute to an organization somehow. So let's just get right into it. Some of the most common tools you're going to need, and I'm going to label them as different buckets because there are competitor tools in this niche. So if you have one tool nailed down in each of these buckets, you can probably learn the other tools relatively quickly because a lot of the principles with using one tool will apply to another. Not always, but it's a rough rule of thumb and it will help you hit the ground running. So the first bucket of tools is web analytics tools. So I often recommend the most popular common ones or the free ones, ideally all of the above. And in this case, the answer is pretty obvious, Google Analytics 4. This is probably the most common used analytics tool in the whole world. Most sites, especially small sites, they just install it because it's free and it's really good. And it will track a bunch of numbers on the site for you. You basically add some tracking code to every page of your site, and then you create an account on Google Analytics and it starts working. So I highly recommend getting experience in this tool. Now there are comparable competitor tools like Amplitude and Mixpanel out there, but you're better off working with Google, which is the dominant player right now. And before I get to the second one, I want to ask y'all to leave a like, maybe subscribe if you like this type of video to get more insights on if this is a job for you. But moving on to the second category of things, you also need some type of tag management tool. That is really important, especially if you're focused on web data analytics, because nowadays there's so many tracking codes and marketing tools you can insert to a site, and it just gets really messy in the code. So a tool like Google Tag Manager is your best bet for being able to insert that code and manage it properly. I would say any site or organization that has a certain level of sophistication and understanding of the web, they're probably using the Google Tag Manager or some tag management software. It's usually the beginners or the small websites or organizations where they haven't really started to use that tool yet. It not only just inserts and organizes your tracking codes, but it does a bunch of other cool stuff. Like the biggest thing is you can track a bunch of custom things like button clicks, add to carts, form submissions, purchases, email signups, scroll depth, all these custom things that your base web analytics tool will not. So I highly recommend it. It's a huge part of the equation. And then the third big category is a data visualization tool. So this is something where they take the web analytics data, which is kind of, it's a lot if you just look at it in the interface. And then you define what you want to measure, and then you visualize it the way you want in different charts in a dashboard. And this dashboard is something that you can interact with, and then you can change the time range and all the numbers will automatically update. So these are the three big categories of tools. I think for the last one, a great selection just to keep it in the Google Suite is Google Looker Studio. It's also free for you to play with and learn from, and it's a very popular tool for small to medium-sized businesses. So you want to learn these tools, and so how can you do this in record time? Now, for me, I did it the long way, and I think looking back, I think there's definitely ways you can shave some time off. I spent many years playing with the tool myself for my own website, and then I got to an agency, and the agency gave me a lot of experience working with the tool for many clients. And I would say the first couple months were a bit rough because the tool just looked so, especially Google Analytics specifically, it just looks so overwhelming, and there's so many different buttons and features. So here's what I recommend you do. I recommend that you go ahead and ideally the best thing is to get your foot in the door, either as an intern, work for free, entry level. It's not about the pay, but getting that experience working with the tool with various real clients. I mean, when I look at where my growth and understanding of these tools accelerated a lot, it's when I had someone at the agency, showing me how to use the tool. But then don't rely on that because sometimes they're too busy to really train you much on it. It was me self-teaching myself, having access to real data, real web analytics data from various clients. So if you could get your foot in the door somewhere, maybe it's freelancing or at an agency or just a regular business, and get real world experience working with these tools, that's probably the fastest way to shortcut. However, I think another way, a secondary way that's really beneficial is to really just create your own website, start to drive traffic to it somehow, and start to use those tools and learn those tools. Because at the end of the day, even when you're at an agency and someone's partially teaching it to you, in my experience at least, there are certain knowledge gaps that you can only get to by studying and understanding what you're doing. And to do that, you look at free tutorials, resources online. The beauty of a lot of these tools is that oftentimes their website will have free tutorials, maybe even academies, certifications. And then if they don't have it, there's often some personal blog or organization that will teach you, and they have their own tutorials, and they're often free as well. So my favorites for Google Tag Manager, for example, and Google Analytics are these websites, analyticsmania.com and measureschool.com. So write those down, check them out. They even have YouTube channels with tutorial videos that I think are spectacular. And that was how I was able to teach myself Google Tag Manager at a record pace. So, now you may be thinking, okay, maybe I don't need Google Tag Manager or this or that because I just want data analytics because I want this particular job or particular thing I need to do. I don't need to really set up tracking or anything. So yeah, data analytics is really broad. So I will have to tell you that it really depends on what avenue you're going for. However, as someone who's a marketing data analytics guy, I would say that anytime you're interacting with the website, a lot of these different tools interact together or work together as a team to build some type of end product where leadership is looking at your web analytics numbers on some dashboard. And so I think, at least from my perspective, I think it would be very useful for you to understand some of these tools. Now, moving on to the next thing, what else should you get other than the tools? Well, what about programming? So if you want to manipulate the numbers, look at large data sets and use them well, you probably want to learn SQL at the least. Python's like a nice to have, but SQL is just very useful. Now, I think there's a lot of free tutorials and videos that can teach you SQL. And I think, anyone who really sets their mind to it with, an average decent intelligence can learn it. However, I think the fastest way, if you're willing to spend a little bit of money, is pay for one of these websites that sell a tutorial on SQL. They just have these courses that are just so much better and can get you up to speed faster. So my personal favorite is codeacademy.com, although there's a lot of others that are just as great, because they have something where you can actually interact with, type in the programming language, and it'll output something. Now, once you get more sophisticated and advanced, there are, more expensive courses, but, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Right now, you just need to get beginner to intermediate SQL skills, which you can learn from a Udemy or Code Academy. And I would say, once you have that tool, once again, you can try to see if you can play with real data or even mock sample data you can find online to really start to use the tool. So one other big tool that you can practice SQL in is Google Cloud. And Google Cloud actually offers tutorials on how to use it, as well as a bunch of free sample data sets that you can use to really understand how to query, let's say, Google Analytics 4 data in BigQuery. So that's really how you do it. So Google Cloud is basically this big product, but within that product, there's one product in particular called BigQuery that is what you can use to basically download in sample data or real big data, and then you can run queries using SQL programming language to succeed. Now, I will throw in an extra spicy one, which is ChatGPT or any comparable AI tool out there. And the reason being is because nowadays, what I've been experimenting with and what I've seen with ChatGPT is that you may not even need to understand how to program SQL. I still think it's good to have a base level of understanding, but hear me out. You can now have ChatGPT write the code for you. So I think having a basic level still helps, because then you can debug, you can rewrite it if ChatGPT gets it wrong, you understand what they're writing. So don't sleep on that, because that could be a real issue if you just rely on this and then you can't. I think a lot of employers are still looking for people who can actually write SQL, and they will test you on the interview process. But having said that, I have seen the benefits of this tool, and I've personally been able to fix or tweak or update SQL code or JavaScript or something that wasn't working to make it work with the help of tools like ChatGPT. So don't sleep on it. Now, last but not least, I think there are some soft skills that just need to be developed over time with practice and experience. You can't just read a book in theory. Sometimes the best way is to just get out there. And in my opinion, as at an agency where you just get a lot more experience with various different clients all at once. But you could also do it in-house or freelancing, or for your mom and pop shop or something like that. But I highly, highly recommend that you work on the soft skills of communication. Arguably, it's called public speaking, but just articulating, being clear, concise, animated, excited, and expressive on camera. Especially if you do Zoom calls rather than in person, but in person as well. And be able to say what you need to say confidently and clearly. For me, I've gotten coaches to help with that. And usually, for most people, myself included for sure, you think you're more confident and articulate and clean and precise than you actually are. And that's another reason I'm doing these YouTube videos, to practice the art of articulating and keeping your attention and not boring the heck out of you. So work on all that because it's really important. And then the other big soft skill is the strategy portion. And that's just something you have to learn with real world practice. Specifically, data is just data. It's kind of like the Alice in Wonderland quote where the Cheshire Cat says, it doesn't really matter which way you're going if you have no goal or place you want to get to. And so in a similar way, data analytics is only as good as the strategy behind it. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of random numbers. So it really is a skill to piece out what does the organization, what is this point of contact, this leader who you're helping, what do they actually want? And it always starts with a qualitative goal, not a quantifiable numbers goal, but a qualitative goal. Sometimes it's we want to grow in revenue to X amount. But other times it's we want to change the world by, becoming the market leader in this industry, or we want to help people suffering from this disease or illness have better resources. And right now, not a lot of people are aware of the resources and treatments we have out there for this. So there's different organizational goals, even departmental goals, and you want to start there and really, pull out what they actually care about so that you can choose and recommend the right metrics to report on. Because you can have all this analytics, but if you present the wrong metrics, doesn't really matter. If it, I think a big mistake I see often, having inherited many dashboards and seeing what came before, is that sometimes they'll throw everything in the kitchen sink onto the dashboard because there's so many metrics that these analytics tools measure. And the issue with that is it's overwhelming, it's confusing, and it really doesn't help leadership. More is not always better. In fact, less is more. Sometimes I'll particularly try and delete or remove charts I made, even though they're really pretty and they look amazing. And that's sometimes better because you have to understand the leader is not as technically savvy as you are when it comes to digital. So those are all the big things that I think could be useful. Now, I'm sure someone else may have different answers if they come from an AI machine learning background and their focus for you is just to become an AI expert. Their focus and recommendations are probably going to be completely different and focused on learning certain programming or prompting languages to succeed. But I wanted to give my perspective for people who wanted to get a similar job as a digital analytics engineer. Some people call my role a marketing analyst or digital analyst. I like to call it a digital marketing data analyst. But if you want a role like that, these are some of the tips that I would recommend going from 0 to hero in 3 months or less. And last but not least, maybe most important, is presenting it so that it is perceived that you are actually pretty skilled at this. And my biggest recommendation is build a portfolio of real projects. If you can, get some free work, internship, volunteer at an agency or freelancing or somewhere with real businesses, with real numbers, and then put that all into a portfolio you can present at your interview and when you apply for a job. Because people want to see irrefutable proof you actually know what you're doing so that when they hire you, they know we're not going to have to fire this guy because he doesn't have the skills. And so to do that, you want to get as much real world experience and show that as possible. And really go as deep as you can. Try and use these for more and more advanced things. If you keep it very shallow and beginner, it's not as impressive by far as if you really understand some of these tools and skill sets inside and out, and you can showcase that. And by showcasing it in a portfolio or a project or something, it's so much more powerful than just saying you can do that, because everyone can lie. So with that being said, I really think that's the best way. Get as much real world experience as you can. And I know the job market can be hard sometimes. So you can't get that foot in the door at the agency or whatnot because it is so competitive. The next best way is to build your own site, drive your own traffic to it. Maybe, experiment with actually building a website, adding traffic, setting up all these tools and using them. So thanks for watching. Leave a like, subscribe. Join my free email newsletter where I give even more exclusive tips and insights on what this job is like and how to get this job if you're interested in, pursuing this type of job one day. and it's completely free. Link is below in the description. And last but not least, leave a comment. If you have any questions or specific ideas on videos you want me to do next or things you want me to answer, please let me know in the comments and I'll try my best to do that. Let's stay positive in the comments. Keep it not negative. I appreciate that. And I'll see you in the next video.